Shalom. Let me get straight into this lesson. 1 second.
Well, let's talk about some disgusting.
So I'm gonna get into this redacted, and terrible times are coming. World War III is on the brink. It's been brewing, but I'm gonna get into this old interview from 2007. This is guy General Wesley Clark went into how the United States would invade five or seven countries, but one of the last countries that they would overthrow was Iran. I'm gonna get into that footage. A lot of people don't know this information, so the game is already fixed. The small hatters, as you know, as the J people control America. They control your banks. They control all the media. They control the whole religious systems, right? They control the so-called money, starting at the Rothschild family, which the Rothschild family claimed to be Jewish, which they are Amalekites, they're Edomites. So, the other elites that changed their name into American names, like the Rockefellers, the J.P. Morgans, all those different, elites that control the world, starting at the J people. So this list. It says Iraq, which they lied about Iraq and said they had weapons of mass destruction because Saddam didn't want to take the dollar anymore. It's all about them enforcing the dollar. And it goes to show you that this is Babylon the Great. Because if I'm not mistaken, Saddam was going to start not trading his oil with the United States dollar. He was going to be using the euro, and they couldn't have that. That's why you got something called the petrodollar. This is how America is able to dominate the world. This is Babylon the Great. Then you had Syria, which they overthrew Syria. Lebanon. You got Libya, which they overthrew Libya with Gaddafi. Somalia, Sudan, and Iran. So 7 countries. So I'm gonna get into that interview. I'm gonna get into that clip next. Let's play a little bit of this redacted, kind of warm things up, because Donald Trump, he's just a puppet. He played dumb, act like he don't, I haven't made my decision up. This decision already been made. So check this out, how they play stupid with you people.
This, which is the war right now between Iran and Israel and the U.S. by proxy, of course, and now maybe China by proxy as well. The White House says that President Trump is trying to decide right now about a war with Iran, but he just needs a few weeks to decide.
See how they lied to you? I'm gonna prove that to you. Let's keep going.
Watch.
Regarding the ongoing situation in Iran, I know there has been a lot of speculation amongst all of you in the media regarding the president's decision-making and whether or not the United States will be directly involved. In light of that news, I have a message directly from the president, and I quote, "Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks." That's a quote directly from the president for all of you today. So we'll kick it off for questions here in our new media seat. We have Eli Lake from...
Okay, so that's a TBD, right? That's a to be determined. We're just really not sure whether or not we're going to go to war. The president needs some time to cool his jets, maybe meditate, maybe pray. Are you exhausted reading the tea leaves and then anything we're promised doesn't happen? We don't know what's happening. Well, Seymour Hersh reports just the opposite. He says today in his reporting that a war and an attack on Iran is happening within the next 48 hours over the weekend. His report is chilling and absolutely credible, given his track record.
All right, so check this out. So if they don't do this right now, they're going to eventually do this. But I think the time is ripe because we're in the season of the end. So let me get into this other video I was telling you about. Give me 1 second. That's this guy, General Wesley Clark. It says wars were planned in 7 countries in 5 years. Check this out. This is very condemning information from Esau Edom. This is the tongue falling upon themselves. So he said this, then he recanted what he said. Check this out.
Through the Pentagon, and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld, and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz, I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who used to work for me, and one of the generals called me in. He said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They've just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So
remember that term hammer, because I'm going to go to that scripture in Jeremiah. This is that hammer of the whole earth.
I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran."
So you heard that for your own self. Give me 1 second. And it's going back to Esau. This is how we identify who the Edomites are today. They're not Japhet, right? They're not done away with. They one of the major characters on the scene of prophecy at the end, pursuant to the book of 2 Ezra 6-9. So the Edomites will live by the sword. Now, I know Jake might not really understand the depthness of a sword, but that's warfare. And they do it in biological warfare, missiles, you name it, anything that's associated with killing. Genesis 27:40, it says, and this was Esau's blessing. You can read the whole Genesis chapter 27. It says, "And by thy sword shall thy live." So this is how the Edomites live. This is how they rationalize what things like war. "And shall serve thy brother, and it shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck." So the Edomites would be on the scene of the crime, and they would rule by the force of the sword, which would be the military in today's terminology and all their military technology. That's what makes Babylon the great, that reign on all the kings of the earth. Might, the military. They have the greatest military known to man. It says Habakkuk 2:3. It says, "For the visions yet for an appointed time, but at the end," that's the times that we're in right now. That's why everything is uncertain. The economy is in shambles. You got people bugging out. It's a mess. It says, "and not lie." So it's going to happen. You got scoffers, you got naysayers, you got people that got their own interpretation of how things going to play out. But we leaning back into the scriptures. Though it tarry, wait for it. So sometimes it might stall out a little bit, but it's coming. Be patient, because it will surely come and it would not tarry. So once it gets back moving, it's a wrap. So it's looking like that the United States, and we'll see how this play out, because the United States eventually is going to get involved, whether it's now or later. The cards that are already set. World War III is going to happen. It's a part of prophecy. Let's go here. And go on to this scripture, Revelation 17:18, states, "And the woman which thou sawest is that great city," going back into Babylon. The woman represents Babylon, which represents America, that ride on that beast. It says, "which reigneth over the kings of the earth." So what does this mean? They go to show you that woman is not talking about, some folly. It's talking about, it's a representation that beast he was on. The woman that's riding the beast is the NATO, but the woman is America. It says this verse refers to the symbolic great city that is identified as Babylon, representing a powerful and influential entity that holds sway over the rulers of the world, which is America. They could put sanctions on you. They can put what's that? Economic terrorism on your country. They can stop you. They can do the SWIFT system. They can jam all your transactions. They can send military might on you. This is Babylon the Great. Right here at the top. It says dominion over kings. The phrase reigning over the kings of the earth signifies that this symbolic Babylon has significant power and influence over the leaders and nations of the world. Right here. It says the verse is a part of a larger vision of Revelation that depicts a woman identified as Babylon who is associated with worldly power, idolatry, Christmas, Valentine's Day, pick your poison, and the persecution of the righteous, which would be the Israelites. Let's go here. Jeremiah 50:1. It says, the word of Yahweh spake against Babylon and against the land of the Chaldeans by Jeremiah the prophet. It says, let's jump down. Salakia. 1 second. 1 second. So let me start at 3. For at the north there are coming up a nation against her, which is, which shall make her land desolate. Talking about America is going to be made desolate. Go to show you, he's not talking about the Neo-Babylonian Empire with Nebuchadnezzar. And none shall dwell therein. There's not going to be anyone dwelling here. It's going to be a desert after this destruction happens. They shall remove and they shall depart both man and beast. Let's keep going. So this ain't talking about ancient Babylon. Let me see, because I want to get straight to the meat. 9. It says, for lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations from the north country. They shall set themselves in array against her. From thence she shall be taken. Their arrows, which will be these missiles, ICBM missiles, and other missiles as well, their arrows shall be as of a mighty expert man. None shall return in vain. That links up with 2nd Esdras when it said strong as right hand bending the bow. There was a dog saying for a missile and nuclear ICBM missiles. So let's keep going. I think it's 23 I wanted to pick back up at. 23, it says, how is the hammer of the whole earth, which would be America? That's why he said that was spiritual when he said hammer. He said, you got a nail, get the hammer for it. Hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken. How has Babylon become a desolation among the nations? This place is going to be a desert when it's destroyed. Let me see what else I want to hit. One second. Let's read 24. I have laid a snare for thee. So there's a trap being set. Thou art taken, O Babylon. Thou was not aware. Thou art found and also caught, because thou hast striven against the Lord Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shah with all these abominations that's going on here. These people do all this idolatry, all these abominations, and yet turn around and say they believe in so-called God, that ain't even his name. It says 29. It says, call together the archers against Babylon. That's these military with these missiles. And ye shall bend the bow, camp against around about her. Let none thereof escape. Recompense her according to her work, according to all that she had done. Do unto her, for she have done proud against Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shah. All right, against the Holy One of Israel. Call Halal Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shah Bahashim Rachak Kodash. Shalom.